The first thing I heard was the crack of metal against pavement, a jagged sound that cut through the soft afternoon like a scream. For a heartbeat I didn't understand what I was looking at, just a toppled wheelchair on the wooden porch of the rehabilitation center, a backpack spilled open, and a girl struggling to lift herself with trembling arms while pretending she wasn't hurting. Her hair was tied in a messy bun, her white shirt smudged with dust, and she kept brushing her cheek as though wiping away a tear she didn't want anyone to see. I froze, halfway up the steps, realizing too late that she had noticed me watching her battle the world alone. My chest tightened because it felt like I was witnessing something I was never meant to see, the private breaking of someone who fought too hard to appear unbreakable. If you're feeling even a small ripple of love or empathy already, then like, comment, share, and subscribe, because stories like this remind us why hope, compassion, and second chances matter. Her name was Aria, though I only learned that much later. Right then, she was just a stranger who refused my help even as her hands shook from the effort of trying to set her wheelchair upright. There was something fierce about her, not anger, but pride carved into her bones. I walked closer anyway because something in her eyes made it impossible to walk away. The sunlight filtered through the tall trees behind her, turning the scene strangely cinematic, like the world paused just long enough for two people to meet by accident and change everything without knowing it yet. I had come to the rehab center because my physical therapist insisted I speak to other people recovering from injuries. Socializing, she said, might help with my own emotional healing. I wasn't physically injured, not anymore, but my mind had been limping for months after the car crash that took my cousin's life and left me drowning in guilt. She was driving because I panicked during a storm. She tried to calm me, reassure me, but I kept pushing her to get us home faster. Every night since, I've replayed the moment the tires skidded and her scream dissolved into the thunder. I survived without a scratch. That alone felt like a crime. So I went there, mostly to hide from the life I used to know. The porch was where patients sometimes sat to feel normal again. I didn't expect to find someone like Aria there. Someone who somehow managed to be fragile and unyielding at the same time. She finally gave up trying to lift the wheelchair and sat back, chest rising and falling from exhaustion. I picked it up for her without a word because she didn't need pity, she just needed a moment to breathe. She didn't thank me. Instead she studied my face with an unsettling kind of clarity, as if she could see every wound inside me. She told me later that she assumed someone had told me about her condition before I approached her. But that day, I didn't know anything about her paralysis, not how it happened, nor that it wasn't full paralysis, only partial, only enough to change her entire world. She had some movement in her legs, weak and unreliable, like threads that snapped the moment she leaned on them. She hated people finding out because they began treating her like glass. She hated pity, sympathy, or soft words that didn't match the strength she had been forced to grow. In the weeks that followed, Aria and I crossed paths often. Maybe it wasn't coincidence. Maybe we were both drawn to each other because broken people recognize each other in ways the world can't explain. We began talking in that natural, unplanned way where conversations feel both accidental and inevitable. She told me her injury came from a fall during a hiking trip, one wrong step, one loose stone, and everything changed. The doctors said she was lucky to retain partial mobility, but Aria despised the word lucky. Lucky, she said, was standing on top of the mountain with wind in your hair, not waking up in a hospital unable to feel half your body. She had lost friends who couldn't handle her new challenges, a boyfriend who didn't want to limit his life, and a father who believed her dreams were now unrealistic fantasies. But she didn't talk about these things with sadness. She said them calmly, like she had already spent all her tears long before I arrived. I didn't tell her about the crash for a long time. She never asked why I came to the center if I could walk perfectly fine. She wasn't interested in things people showed on the outside, she waited for what they concealed. That made her intimidating sometimes, like looking directly into sunlight. Still, being around her felt like breathing after holding my breath for months. Months passed, and people at the center assumed we were dating. The staff teased us. Visitors smiled knowingly. Arya would roll her eyes, but she never corrected them. Neither did I. There was an unspoken tenderness growing between us, not rushed, not forced. It was like the world kept nudging us closer without permission. Then came the afternoon everything fractured. A volunteer, unaware of boundaries, casually joked that I was such a good guy for giving someone like her a chance. Arya overheard. I watched her expression collapse, not dramatically, but quietly, like a flame dimming. Later, when we were alone on the porch again, she finally spoke the words she had carried like a stone in her mouth. She told me she felt tricked, misled by kindness, unsure whether I was spending time with her because I wanted to or because my therapist suggested bonding with people who struggled more. She whispered that if pity was the reason I stayed, I didn't have to fake it anymore. Those words shattered something inside me. I had never felt pity for her, only admiration. But I had been too much of a coward to tell her the truth about my guilt. That day, the sunlight seemed colder, the wind harsher, as if the world could sense the distance stretching between us. I told her everything, my cousin, the accident, the nightmares. I said I came there because I felt like a fraud walking around alive when someone else died because of me. And that meeting her wasn't therapy, it was the first time I felt like life might forgive me someday. Arya listened without interrupting, her expression softening as though each word I confessed unwrapped something inside her too. But trauma turns people cautious. She didn't let herself believe me right away. For days she kept her distance, unsure whether trusting me would lead to comfort or heartbreak. I kept visiting the porch, waiting, hoping. The sky changed from blue to gray to gold each day while I sat there wondering if I had ruined the only connection that made me feel whole again. One late afternoon, when the sun painted the railing in warm, fragile light, she returned. She moved her wheelchair slower than usual, as if approaching something precious she wasn't sure she deserved. She didn't speak right away. Instead she handed me a small notebook from her backpack, sketches of mountains she hoped to climb again someday, even if she had to crawl. She said she believed me now. She said she understood because she too had once pushed away the people who genuinely cared, terrified that they would leave once they saw the parts of her she tried hardest to hide. She told me she didn't want pity, she wanted partnership. Not someone to push her chair, but someone to walk beside her even when she stumbled. Someone who saw her strength before they saw her struggle. I realized then that we were both rebuilding ourselves, piece by painful piece, and maybe fate hadn't brought us together to fix one another, but to help each other grow beyond the weight of our pasts. If this story touched your heart so far, support it. Your love keeps these emotional journeys alive. Please comment your thoughts before the final scene, because your words matter more than you know. In the months that followed, Arya learned to stand for a few seconds at a time, her hands gripping mine for balance, her legs trembling but determined. I learned to stop carrying guilt like a punishment and start carrying memories like a promise. We rebuilt ourselves slowly, gently, without rushing the fragile beauty unfolding between us. Not out of pity. Not out of obligation. But out of a connection that survived honesty, fear, doubt, and the shadows of our pasts. And the most powerful thing I learned was this: sometimes life leads you toward people who aren't looking for someone to save them, but someone to believe in their strength. And sometimes, without realizing it, they end up saving you too, simply by being brave enough to let you in.